My name's Maren Kowalski. I'm 33. 5 years ago, my sister told my parents I'd been fired from my residency for stealing medication. That was a straight-up lie. It cost me my whole family anyway. They blocked my number. They skipped my wedding. For 5 years, I wasn't anybody's daughter. Then 3 weeks ago, my sister got wheeled into my ER bleeding out from a car wreck on I-75. And the second my mother saw the name on my badge, she grabbed my father's arm so hard it left bruises. Before we get into this, stick around, because by the end, you're gonna want to see if she actually gets what's coming to her, and drop your city and your local time in the comments. I want to know who's actually watching this with me right now. Let me take you back to a kitchen table in Toledo, Ohio, fall of 2019. The last time my dad ever looked at me like I mattered. Growing up, there were 2 Kowalski girls, but honestly only one who counted. My sister Paige is 4 years older. She came out of the womb performing cheer captain homecoming court, the girl who could talk her way out of a speeding ticket and into a free coffee in the same conversation. My parents, Russell and Carol Blue Collar Toledo, through and through, dad on the line at the Jeep plant, mom doing the church bulletin, and 3 other people's taxes on the side. They cared about exactly 2 things: how things looked and whether you did what you were told. Paige delivered on both, flawless every single time. I was the quiet one. Nose in a chemistry textbook while Paige held court at Thanksgiving. I wasn't difficult. I wasn't rebellious. I was just kind of invisible, and there's a real difference between being forgotten and never being seen in the first place. Freshman year of high school, I made it to state for the science fair. Only kid from our whole school. Same weekend, Paige had a cheer competition. Guess where my parents went? I came home with a second-place ribbon, and my dad glanced at it and said, "That's nice, Mare." Didn't ask one single question about the project. Never did. I told myself it didn't hurt. I poured everything into grades instead. Figured if I couldn't be the daughter they noticed, I'd be the one they couldn't ignore. For one shining minute, it actually worked. Acceptance letter to Case Western's med program landed on a Tuesday. Dad read it slow at the kitchen table, eyebrows going up like he was tasting the words. That's a real medical school. Then he looked at me, and said, "Maybe you'll actually make something of yourself, Mare." Not exactly a compliment. Closest thing I'd gotten from him in 18 years, though. I held on to it like it was oxygen. Mom called her sister that night. Called 2 neighbors. Maren got into medical school, can you believe it? I'd never heard that pitch in her voice before. Pride. Real undiluted pride pointed straight at me for once. At dinner, I glanced at Paige. She was smiling, but it stopped right at her mouth. Her eyes were doing something else entirely. Calculating. I didn't clock it at the time. I know exactly what it was now. None of us at that table had the first clue that 5 years later, she'd be the one strapped to a stretcher, and I'd be the one holding the scalpel. Keep that in your back pocket. We're gonna get there. That week, Paige started calling me constantly. How's packing going? Who's your roommate? What's Cleveland like? Remembered every name I dropped. I thought finally my sister sees me. Turns out I was just handing her ammunition, one grateful detail at a time. 3rd year of med school, everything cracked open. My roommate and best friend, a woman named Fiona Nguyen, no family to speak of, aged out of foster care at 18, was the whole reason I survived first year. When I called home once mid-anatomy exam, meltdown mom said, "Can't talk right now, Maren Paige is having a rough week at work." It was Fiona who sat on our apartment floor and said, "Their loss. Get up, we got a cadaver to memorize." August of that year, Fiona got diagnosed stage 4 pancreatic. No family, just me. I went to the dean's office, explained everything, got a formal leave of absence approved, 1 semester caregiver status, all documented, spot held back in January. I moved into Fiona's spare room, drove her to chemo, held her hand at 3 a.m. when the pain got so bad she couldn't breathe. I called Paige to tell her because some dumb, hopeful part of me still believed she was the sister she pretended to be. Told her everything. Her voice went syrup sweet. "Oh my God, Mare. I'm so sorry. Take all the time you need. I won't say a word to Mom and Dad. I know they'd just worry." 3 days later, she called our parents anyway. I wouldn't find out the full shape of that lie for 5 more years. The call came at 11 p.m. I was in a plastic chair next to Fiona's hospital bed after a bad reaction to chemo. Phone lit up. Dad. Voice flat as concrete. Your sister told us everything. The stealing. All of it. I said, Dad, that's not... I'm literally sitting in a hospital right now taking care of my friend. He said, Paige said you'd have a story ready. Mom got on, voice shaking. How could you lie to us? I said, I could send the leave of absence paperwork, the dean's direct number, anything. Dad cut me off. Don't call this house again until you're ready to tell the truth. Line went dead. I sat on that hospital floor for 20 minutes. Fiona's IV beeping through the curtain. Call duration on my screen. 4 minutes, 6 seconds. That's how long it took my parents to erase me. 20 minutes later, a text from Paige. I'm sorry, Mayor. I had to tell them. Couldn't keep your secret anymore. She wasn't sorry. She just landed the cleanest hit of her whole life, signed off with a broken heart emoji. I had $61 in checking and I was 300 miles from home with no family left. I tried, though. I need you to know I actually tried. 14 calls in 5 days. First 3 went to voicemail. Dad blocked me by day 4. Mom blocked me 2 days after that. 2 emails, one with the leave of absence PDF attached, dean's number included. No response, either one. A handwritten letter mailed priority. Came back 5 days later, unopened, my mom's handwriting on the front. I called Aunt Deb, my dad's younger sister, only person in that whole family who ever treated me like I mattered equally. She called my dad that same night. Called me back 40 minutes later, voice heavy. He told me to stay out of it, sweetheart. Said you made your bed. 14 calls, 2 emails, 1 letter, 1 aunt. Every single attempt blocked or returned. This wasn't new, by the way. This was just my entire life compressed into its loudest possible version. Fiona died on a Sunday morning in December. Just the monitor going flat and pale winter light through the window. I was the only one in the room. Nobody from my family knew. Paige sure didn't ask. 6 people came to the funeral. I read the eulogy to a chapel that seats 60. Didn't cry, not because I wasn't broken, but because I'd been crying for 3 straight months already and there was nothing left. That night alone in Fiona's apartment, I found something tucked in her copy of Grey's Anatomy. Yellow sticky note in her shaky handwriting. Finish what you started, Marin. Don't you dare let anybody, especially your own blood, tell you who you are. She'd written it weeks before she died. Knew she wouldn't be around to say it herself. I filled out the re-enrollment form that same night. 2 options, fold or climb. I climbed. Not for revenge. For Fiona, and for the version of me she actually believed in. Went back in January with no family safety net whatsoever. Extra loans, a part-time research gig, more hospital cafeteria leftovers than I'll ever admit to on camera. I worked like my life depended on it because, not gonna lie, it kind of did. Graduated on time. Nobody from Toledo showed. Matched into a surgical residency at St. Aldrich Medical Level 1 Trauma Center outside Columbus. That's where I met Dr. Renata Cho, Chief of Trauma Emerita, built like a steel cable in a lab coat, the mentor I desperately needed and honestly the mother figure I'd lost. 3rd year of residency, I met Julian, a public defender doing pro bono clinic hours nearby. Calm eyes, dry humor. First person I told the whole story to who didn't flinch or try to fix it. Just listened. Then said, "You deserve better." 4 words. That was enough. We got married in Renata's backyard. 30 guests. Julian's dad walked me down the aisle. I mailed an invitation to Toledo. Came back unopened, same as the letter. Aunt Deb was there, though. Cried enough for 2 parents combined. 5 years passed. I became somebody they genuinely wouldn't recognize. Real quick, if you've ever been in a spot where your own family wouldn't hear your side, because somebody else's lie was louder, drop A in the comments. And if you think my parents are gonna regret this, just type karma. Let's keep going because what happened next, even I didn't see coming. January present day. I'm chief of trauma surgery at St. Aldrich. House in the suburbs. A husband who makes me laugh daily, a rescue mutt named Suture, who's never once judged me for eating cereal standing over the sink at midnight. Good life. Real one. Built brick by brick with my own 2 hands. Still an ache, though, right between the ribs where a family's supposed to sit. Aunt Deb still calls every Sunday. My thread back to that world. I never ask about them, but I listen when she volunteers stuff. Mom and Dad are healthy. Paige got divorced 2 years back. Sells pharmaceutical devices now. Irony's not lost on me, believe me. Last week, Deb called with something different in her voice. Careful. Marin. There's something about Paige I need to tell you. Something concerning. Before she could finish, my pager went off. Trauma incoming. Told her I'd call back. Never got the chance. Because what she was about to warn me about was already flying down I-75 at 60 in a sedan that ran a red light. Let's slow down for a second, though, because you need the real shape of what Paige actually did before you watch it all catch up to her. It wasn't one lie. It was a whole 5-year campaign. Deb had been feeding me pieces over the years, reluctant, careful, like she was diffusing something. And the full picture was worse than I'd imagined. Every Thanksgiving, every Christmas. Paige played the grieving older sister, a sigh, a lowered voice. We don't really talk about Marin anymore, and she let the silence do the dirty work. That was the surface. The real proof came from Julian. And honestly, it's the part that still gets under my skin the most. I've begged Marin to come home. She told the whole table once, according to Deb, voice tight with fury. She won't even answer my calls. I think she hates us. Meanwhile, I was 3 floors deep in an OR saving somebody's kid. The genius of it, and I use that word with actual disgust, is Paige didn't need my parents to forget me. She needed them to believe I'd abandoned them first. That way, their grief became proof. Their silence got justified. And she stayed exactly what she'd always been, the loyal one, the one who stayed. She wasn't protecting them. She was protecting her own position. Julian told me the rest of it over coffee about 6 months back. Sat on it 2 full years before he finally said it. He set his mug down real slow, careful the way he does right before he's about to drop something heavy in his lawyer voice. There's something I never told you, he said. Couple years ago, I got a call. HR at your old residency program doing a routine reference check on some inquiry that had come in. Somebody using a fake name had called them directly asking whether you'd ever been disciplined, whether your credentials were even real, whether there was, quote, a pattern of dishonesty in your file. I set my fork down. Somebody called my old hospital pretending to be who exactly? They wouldn't say who. But HR flagged it as unusual enough that they looped me in as your emergency contact on file just to verify you were aware. I told them I'd handle it. Then I sat on it because at the time I didn't want you carrying one more thing. 2 years, Julian. I know. I had a colleague pull the inquiry logs off the books. Wanted to be sure before I ever said a word to you. And? IP address traced back to a Toledo zip code. The kitchen went dead quiet. Suture's tail thumped once against the floor. Coffee maker hissed behind him. She was hunting for something I said. Anything she could use, Julian said. Anything that would let her keep the story alive. Prove you were a fraud, not her. I sat there running the math. 2 years after the fact, 2 years of Paige quietly poking at my professional record from 3 states away, hoping anything would finally stick. V. She didn't find a single thing because there was nothing to find. But she'd spent 5 years making sure the lie never cracked. Every holiday story, every whispered rumor, every fake HR inquiry, one more brick in a wall she never once let fall apart. Thursday night, 3:07 a.m., pager drags me out of a dead sleep. Julian Shifts mutters something. Suture lifts his head off the bed. Screen glowing in the dark. Level 1 trauma. MVC single female 36. Blunt abdominal trauma. Hemodynamically unstable. ETA 8 minutes. Dressed in 4. Driving in 6. Ran the case in my head the whole way. Probable splenic rupture, maybe a liver lack standard damage control. Badged in through the ambulance bay. Grabbed the intake tablet. Swiped to the incoming chart. Patient, Paige Kowalski. DOB March. Emergency contact, Russell Kowalski, father. I stopped walking. Every hallway sound pulled back like a tide going out. For 2-3 seconds, I wasn't a surgeon anymore. I was 28, sitting on a hospital floor in Cleveland, phone still warm, listening to a dial tone. Charge nurse touched my shoulder. "You good?" "I'm fine. Prep Bay 2. Page Dr. Okafor. I want him on standby." Ambulance doors cracked open. Paige strapped down unconscious oxygen mask, fogging blood soaking her shirt. Behind her, running, 2 people I hadn't stood in front of in 5 years. Mom looked like she'd aged a full decade. Bathrobe, slippers on the wrong feet. Dad in a flannel thrown on in a panic face the color of old paper. "That's my daughter," he shouted past triage. "I need the doctor in charge." The nurse, Denise, different. Denise, small world, put both hands up. "Sir, family waits in the surgical lounge. The chief's already handling this." "The chief." Dad grabbed her arm. "Get me the chief." Denise glanced through the glass, saw my badge, read the name twice. Eyes went wide for a second. I gave one small shake of my head. "Not now." She composed herself. "Sir, the chief's prepping for surgery. You'll be updated. This way, please." I heard my dad through the partition as they walked away. "She's all we have." Like I'd never existed at all. Scrub room 30 seconds I allowed myself. Hot water over my hands. Face in the steel mirror warped, distorted the way everything felt right then. The woman who'd been surgically cut out of her own family tree, about to save the woman who held the scalpel that did it. Part of me wanted to walk. Hand it to Okafor, let a stranger carry this instead of me. Cleaner. Simpler. But there was a woman on that table losing blood faster than we could push it back in. Going to be dead in 30-40 minutes without the best surgeon in this building. And no cap, that was me. Paged Okafor directly. Conflict of interest, patient's family. Disclosing now, documenting in the chart. Any point my judgment looks compromised, you take over, no questions. Understood, Chief. Fresh gloves, pushed through the doors, looked down at the table. My sister's face bruised smaller than I remembered, somehow worry lines that hadn't been there 5 years ago. For 3 seconds, she wasn't the woman who blew up my whole life. She was a body on my table. That's exactly what I needed her to be. Let's go. Scalpel. 3 hours, 40-some minutes. Ruptured spleen out. Grade 3 liver lac repaired layer by layer. 2 bleeders clamped and cauterized. Barely spoke except to call for instruments. Residents watching closed the way they always do, attention sharpening when the liver repair got dicey. I didn't flinch. Couldn't afford to. 6:40 a.m., final stitch. Vital stable. She was alive. Okafor pulled his mask down. That was flawless. "Want me to talk to the family?" "No," I said. "This one's mine." Caught my reflection again in that same mirror. Same face, same badge. Something had shifted, though. For 5 years, I was the daughter who vanished. Now I was the surgeon who just pulled her sister back from the edge. Those 2 facts were about to collide in a waiting room 40 feet away in front of my whole night team. Fluorescent hush of a 7 a.m. waiting room. My parents sitting rigid in the center row, sleepless, terrified. I pushed through in scrubs mask, down badge printed in clean block letters anybody could read from 6 feet out. Dr. Marin Kowalski, MD, Fax, Chief of Trauma Surgery. Dad stood first. Always did. "Doctor, how is she?" is Paige. He stopped. Eyes dropped to my badge, rose to my face. Dropped again. I watched recognition move through him like something physical. Mom's hand shot to his forearm, gripped so hard it left 4 bruises shaped like fingertips. She'd tell me later it was the first time she'd ever grabbed him that hard in 40 years of marriage. 5 seconds of silence held 5 years. "Mr. and Mrs. Kowalski," I said, clinical level. "Your daughter sustained a ruptured spleen and a grade 3 liver laceration. Surgery was successful. She's stable in the ICU. You can see her in about an hour. Mr. and Mrs., not Mom and Dad." I watched that land. I watched it cut clean through. Mom took a step, arms lifting, a sob breaking loose. "Marin. Oh my God, Marin." I stepped back half a step, polite but unmistakable. Her arms dropped slow to her sides. Dad's voice came out like gravel. "You're a doctor. You're the chief." "I am." But Paige said what exactly? He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I could watch 5 years of certainty crumbling behind his eyes in real time. Mom was crying for real now. "We thought you got fired. We thought she told us you were. She told you I stole medication, that I got fired, that I refused to contact you. None of it happened. Not one word." Behind the glass, my ICU nurse pressed a hand to her mouth. Dad tried the old redirect. "This isn't the time your sister's in the ICU." "I know. I just spent 3 hours and 40 minutes making sure she survives. So, yeah, Dad, I'm real aware of where she is." He had nothing. First time in my whole life my father had absolutely nothing to say. Mom whispered the letters. "You said you sent letters." 2 emails with my leave of absence paperwork. 1 handwritten letter mailed priority, sent back unopened. "I recognized your handwriting on the envelope. 14 calls in 5 days. Asked Aunt Deb to talk to you. You told her to stay out of it. I wasn't accusing anybody. I was reciting facts. Facts don't need volume." 2 weeks later, once Paige was discharged, I picked the location. Coffee shop halfway between her place and mine. Neutral ground. Julian sat at a separate table pretending to read case files. He wasn't really pretending. She walked in looking hollowed out. Lost weight. Surgery does that. The confidence she used to wear like perfume was gone. First time in my whole memory she looked exactly her actual age. No preamble from me. "I'm not gonna yell. I'm not gonna list every lie. You know what you did? I want to know why." "I don't know what you want me to say." She wrapped both hands around her cup, wouldn't look up. It got out of control. "That's not an excuse, it's just it wasn't supposed to go on this long. 5 years isn't got out of control, Paige. 5 years is a decision you made over and over, every single holiday, every phone call you didn't correct. You don't know what it was like being the one who had to sit at that table and watch them fall apart over you." "I don't know what that was like. I was 300 miles away with $61 and a dying best friend finding out from a dial tone that I didn't have parents anymore." "Try again." She flinched at that, but she didn't crack yet. "I never told them to block you. That was Dad. You handed him the reason to. I was scared, okay? You were about to have this whole life I was never gonna have, and I panicked and then it snowballed, and every time I thought about telling the truth it just felt like it was too late already. It was never too late. You just liked how it felt too much to stop." Silence long enough, the barista's voice echoed off the wall calling somebody's order. She stared at the table like it might answer for her. Then quieter, something in her finally gave. "Because you were gonna be everything I wasn't and I couldn't handle it. That's honest. First honest thing you've said to me in a decade." "I'm sorry, Marin. I know you are. Sorry doesn't put Dad at my wedding. Doesn't unsend the box Mom mailed back like I was dead to her." She looked away. Eyes wet, real tears this time. "I know the difference now." Then she said something I wasn't ready for. "I called your medical school twice. Tried to get your leave revoked. Told them you faked the caregiver documents." I just stared at her. That one landed different than the rest. That wasn't panic anymore. That was 2 separate, deliberate phone calls made cold months apart. "Your dean wouldn't listen to me," she said quieter now, like saying it out loud finally made her hear it too. "He protected you. He didn't protect me, Paige. He believed the truth. Not the same thing." I laid out my terms. She'd tell the whole truth in writing to the entire extended family. Every aunt, uncle, cousin who spent 5 years thinking I was on drugs or dead in a ditch somewhere. Every story corrected. In writing, so nobody could ever soften it into something smaller later. She sent it on a Wednesday to all 40-some family members. No excuses, just facts laid bare, the lie, the fabricated documents, the 5 years of deliberate deception. She ended it with "Marin never abandoned this family. I made sure they believed she did. That's on me." Responses came in waves. An aunt who'd repeated the rehab story at book club mortified. A cousin who wrote Paige a one-line reply, "I don't know who you are anymore." Our 90-year-old grandmother, Nana Ruth, called me herself, voice paper thin and furious. I have never in my life been lied to so thoroughly by my own blood. Nobody organized some big boycott of Paige. Nobody sent angry group texts. People just quietly stopped believing her, which for someone who built her whole identity on being believed was punishment enough all by itself. My parents started family counseling that February. Dad struggled hard, answered every question in as few words as possible, until the therapist named it, plain his need to be right. His refusal to ever revisit a decision had been the load-bearing wall holding the whole disaster upright. Paige poured the lie. Dad's pride cemented it in place. 3 weeks into counseling, Mom mailed me a handwritten letter. "I failed you," it said. Not just when I believed Paige, but every single time I chose peace over fairness, every time your father's temper decided what was true, every time I saw you standing quiet in a doorway and told myself you were fine because it was easier than admitting I wasn't brave enough to fight for you. I read it at my kitchen table suture asleep on my feet. Julian in the next room pretending not to listen. Didn't cry. Just held it a long time. Then opened the drawer where I keep the stuff that matters. Fiona's sticky note, my returned letters, the wedding invite that came back sealed, and put Mom's letter in there too. Same drawer, different side. Here's the part I didn't see coming, though. The email Paige sent to the whole family, the one laying out every lie in writing, Nana Ruth read it out loud at her own kitchen table into a voicemail and left it for Paige to hear. 90-years-old voice, paper thin and shaking with fury. "I buried 2 husbands, and I have never once been lied to as thoroughly as you lied to this family. You don't get to call yourself the one who stayed. You were just the one who was loudest." Paige played that voicemail for me herself weeks later, sitting in her car outside my house, too ashamed to come to the door. Didn't say a word after it finished, just let it sit there between us. That's the moment I actually believed something in her had cracked open for good. Not the coffee shop, not the surgery. A 90-year-old woman's voicemail. A month after the Surgery Physician of the Year gala. 200 people, ballroom lights, the whole deal. I kept my speech short. Talked about almost quitting 5 years back, not from the work, but from losing the people I thought I needed to keep going. Then I said the people you actually need aren't always the ones you're born to. Sometimes they're the ones who choose you. Last row of that ballroom, 2 seats Deb had quietly arranged my parents. Mom in a navy dress she'd clearly bought that week. Dad in a tie he obviously hated. Both looking up at that stage with grief and pride at war on the same face. Sunday morning, first week of February. Light snow that doesn't stick, the kind that makes everything look gently forgiven. Making French toast. Julian singing off key to the radio. Suture stationed under the table, forever optimistic about crumbs. Doorbell rings. Mom and Dad on the porch in winter coats. Dad's holding a bottle of orange juice like he's not sure what to do with his hands. Mom's got a tin of her shortbread, the ones she used to make for every single one of Paige's school events and none of mine ever. "Hi," Mom says, nervous, hopeful. "Come in," I say. Coffee's almost ready. Dad steps in, looks around like he's cataloging a whole life he almost never got to see. Clears his throat. "Can I help with anything?" I look at him, 62 years old, standing in my kitchen for the first time ever asking permission to be useful. "You can set the table, Dad." He nods, takes down 4 plates, sets them one at a time, careful like they might break if he's not gentle enough with them. It's not the childhood I deserved. It's not some movie-perfect reconciliation, but it's real. And real is a whole lot more than I had for a very long time. If this one hit different, drop a comment and tell me, would you have opened that door? And if you've got somebody in your life who chose the easy lie over the hard truth for way too long, send them this one. Not for revenge, just so they understand exactly what silence costs.